Dorm room nightmares, haunted stories from college campuses. Welcome to Almost True Scary Tales, where we explore the sinister and unexplained corners of college life. Tonight, we delve into the places you think are safe, your dorm room. Imagine waking up to find a roommate who shouldn't be there, hearing scratching noises from the walls that no one can explain, or glimpsing shadowy figures standing by your bed in the dead of night. These are the tales whispered across campuses, stories that might make you think twice before turning out the lights tonight. Subscribe now and hit the bell icon. After all, you wouldn't want to miss what might be waiting just outside your door. Let's begin. Story 1, the ghostly roommate who never existed. Sarah was thrilled to start her freshman year at Crestwood University. Her dorm room wasn't anything special. 2 twin beds, 2 desks, and a shared closet. But she was excited to meet her roommate, Emily. Emily was quiet and reserved, always polite but never chatty. She spent most of her time reading or studying at her desk, her face often partially hidden by her long dark hair. Sarah didn't mind. She was busy with her classes and thought she'd lucked out with such a low-maintenance roommate. One night, Sarah came back from a late study session to find Emily sitting at her desk, staring out the window. "You okay?" Sarah asked. Emily turned slightly, her face pale in the moonlight. "I'm fine," she said softly. But her voice sounded distant, almost hollow. Over the weeks, Sarah noticed little things that seemed off. Emily never left the room to go to class, and Sarah couldn't recall her ever eating. When Sarah asked about her major, Emily would give vague answers or change the subject. One evening, Sarah brought up Emily during a conversation with her RA. The RA looked confused. "Emily," she said, "you're assigned a single room." Sarah laughed. "That's impossible. Emily's been living with me since day 1. The RA's face paled. "I think you should talk to housing about this." When Sarah returned to her room that night, Emily was there, sitting on her bed, staring at the wall. Sarah's heart pounded as she stepped inside. "Emily," she said, her voice shaking. "Are you real?" Emily turned to face her, but something was wrong. Her eyes were dark voids, her expression lifeless. She stood and began to move toward Sarah, her movements slow and unnatural. "You shouldn't have asked," Emily whispered. Terrified, Sarah bolted from the room. When she returned the next day with campus security, Emily was gone. Her bed, her belongings, everything had vanished. Housing confirmed the RA's claim. Sarah was assigned to a single. There was no record of Emily. Sarah switched dorms, but the experience haunted her for years. And late at night, she sometimes wondered, if Emily wasn't real, who or what had been living with her? Story 2, the scratching in the walls. Mark wasn't superstitious. A biology major with a logical mind, he didn't believe in ghosts or anything remotely paranormal. So when he moved into Crawford Hall, an older dorm with a reputation for being haunted, he laughed it off. The first few nights were uneventful. His roommate, Jake, snored loudly, and the ancient pipes groaned whenever someone took a shower, but it was nothing out of the ordinary. Then came the scratching. It started one night as Mark was lying in bed, scrolling through his phone. At first it was faint, a light rhythmic sound coming from behind the wall near his bed. He ignored it, thinking it was just mice. But the next night, the scratching grew louder. It wasn't erratic like an animal, it was deliberate, almost purposeful. Mark knocked on the wall, and the sound stopped. He smirked, thinking he'd scared the mice away. But as he turned off the lights and settled into sleep, the scratching resumed. This time it was accompanied by faint whispers. "Jake, do you hear that?" Mark whispered, sitting up in bed. Jake stirred, groaning. "It's just the pipes," he mumbled. Mark wasn't convinced. He got up, turned on the lights, and searched the room. There were no holes in the walls, no signs of mice or rats. But the sound continued, relentless. By the third night, the scratching was unbearable. Mark placed his ear against the wall and froze. Beneath the scratching, he could hear a voice. "Let me out." His heart raced as he backed away, staring at the wall. He grabbed a flashlight and shone it into the tiny vent near the baseboard. For a moment, he thought he saw something. A flash of movement, like a hand retreating into the darkness. Mark reported the noises to maintenance the next day. When the workers inspected the wall, they found nothing but wiring and insulation. But the scratching didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, it grew worse. Mark and Jake both started hearing the whispers, and strange messages appeared in the condensation on their window. "Why won't you help me?" By the end of the semester, Mark couldn't take it anymore. He moved off campus, but he still hears scratching sometimes. Always at night, always just beyond the walls. Story 3, the shadow by the bed. Jessica was a light sleeper, which made dorm life challenging. Between the late-night parties, loud neighbors, and constant hallway chatter, she struggled to get a full night's rest. But nothing compared to what she experienced during her second year. Her dorm room was small but cozy, with just enough space for her bed, desk, and a tiny closet. She often fell asleep with her desk lamp on, its warm glow providing a sense of comfort. One night she woke suddenly, her heart racing. At first she thought it was just a bad dream, but as her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she saw it. A tall, shadowy figure standing at the foot of her bed. Jessica froze, her breath caught in her throat. The figure didn't move, didn't breathe. It was as though it was watching her. "Hello?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The figure tilted its head as if curious. Jessica reached for her phone, fumbling to turn on the flashlight. When the light illuminated the room, the shadow was gone. She convinced herself it was just her imagination. But the next night, it happened again. And the night after that, the shadow grew bolder, lingering longer each time. Once she woke to find it standing right beside her bed, its featureless face inches from hers. Desperate, Jessica called her parents, asking to move back home. They agreed, but before she left, she decided to spend one last night in her dorm. That night, she placed a small camera on her desk, hoping to capture evidence of the shadow. She fell asleep, clutching a flashlight in one hand. The next morning, she reviewed the footage. Her blood ran cold as she watched the shadow materialize at the foot of her bed, slowly inching closer. At one point, it leaned over her, as though studying her face. Jessica never returned to that dorm, but sometimes, when she's alone at night, she feels the same presence, the same suffocating sense of being watched. These were the dorm room nightmares that haunt college campuses. A ghostly roommate scratching from unseen hands, and a shadow that refuses to leave. Each story serves as a chilling reminder that even the safest spaces can hold the darkest secrets. If these tales kept you up, subscribe for more spine-chilling accounts. And tell us, what would you do if your dorm room wasn't as empty as it seemed?